Leclerc. It's Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc!
Welcome to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, brought to you by ProKart's Race Centre.
Far enough back, he's going to make the lunge down the inside!
The ultimate pit stop,
The safety car is coming in.
fueling your passion for motorsport.
With an emotional moment that means everything.
All of the latest results, analysis, and interviews.
Roar the drivers on to the final lap of this race.
I'm Jamie Lemura, motorsport enthusiast, historian, and media presenter.
And I'm Lee Harrison, motorsport professional, Sprint Master Karts race driver, and Formula One alumni.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Negative Camber, the motorsport show. I'm Jamie, and on the screen next to me is Lee Harrison. Hello Lee, how are you?
Oh, look, I'm not too shabby for a Tuesday afternoon.
Tuesday afternoon and the aftermath of the first round of the Formula One season, the Bahrain Grand Prix. So I managed to sleep in the last 15 laps. So it wasn't the most enticing or exciting season opener, it must be said.
No, absolutely. It almost had shadows of last year to it. The only thing that Max could have done different was win by more, and that's what he went out and did. So hopefully that's not the tone setter for the rest of the season, because otherwise we might be tuning out by May or April.
Yeah, I know. It was tedious. We touched on the previous episode. How do you actually go better than what you did the previous year? And it was build a better car. And so clearly Red Bull have done that. But then not only that, the margin of the victory was bigger than what it was last year as well. So, yeah, it's a sobering thought for everyone else down the pit lane, that's for sure.
There are a few factors that sort of played into it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, having a superior car and knowing through testing that they were going to be on the pace, and their tyre allocation coming into the race meeting, they had an extra set of softs, and I think that definitely helped, especially in that last stint. It might have blown the race out a little bit and made the gap maybe a little bit more distorted than what it should have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was also, I've never probably been more frustrated with, I guess, the preparation of the rest of the pit lane, where the cars would largely run faultlessly through testing, at least from an outsider's point of view. Come practice and qualifying, they were generally pretty good. And then from as early as lap 2, there's issues literally from Ferrari all the way down the pit lane. And the only team that wasn't impacted was Red Bull.
Yeah, it's easier to mask problems in testing. Like, no one's really there to see, and you can just bring a car in and out as you wish. But once the racing sort of starts, it's on. And Ferrari looked good through practice and into qualifying. And then, the brake balance or the brake temperature balance on Charles really sort of screwed him over from early on in the race, which was unfortunate to see, but luckily you guys had your outgoing second driver there ready to pick up the podium fight and stick it to Perez, who is still struggling to stay in even the dirty wake of his much more fast teammate.
I was frothing, Harry. I was frothing. I'm not going to lie. Those two passes by Carlos on Charles, even though it was inter-team and et cetera, I was still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, I don't know why you guys make them race so hard. Like, I know he's going out and Charles is your guy to go for, but get rid of Carlos, get him into some clean air and let him see what he can do. I reckon a chance at a second place has gone begging there, and you've let Red Bull steal an extra few points in the championship for the constructors already.
I'd have to agree, to be honest. I think for me, Charles made that harder than what it needed to be, especially when he knew he was ailing with brakes. He was going to be slower than Carlos. There was no point of competing with him or contesting with him for the overtakes in the pass. Park your ego to one side. You know very well that you're team leader this year because of the contractual situation. But at the same token, you've also got to understand that you're driving for Ferrari, and at some point the team comes first in a circumstance like that. Just let him go. And if he gets through, great. If not, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? You've still got to finish the race as well.
100%. It was only round 1, right? So you want to set the team up as best as possible. You're not worried about fighting intra-team about who's going to swing their dick the hardest this week. But, look, does it set the right tone for Ferrari? I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend in Jeddah. But yeah, it's I would have let Charles, back up behind Carlos and let Carlos go after Perez, because I reckon he had the pace to get there, especially with some pit strategy still to go. So it'll be interesting again, like I said, to see what happens this weekend in Jeddah.
Yeah, absolutely. And tyre deg was actually a really big factor as well. And I think had Carlos not have to come through Charles and make those passes, those 2 or 3 extra laps probably could have made the difference with the hard versus the soft. So, yeah, I'd have to agree. But hey, you know what? Tactically, we actually had a good race for a change. We'll mark that down. It was pretty good. Overtaking aside, it was pretty good.
Or average? Like we've just spoken about how bad tactically it was to not tell Charles just to move over. There's still room for improvement, I think.
Mate, compared to some of the chaos that's ensued in the last 2 years, I would have given that an A-.
Look, at least you didn't put any videos up showing, pit stops with stuck wheels. So that's a bonus.
I got close. There was one. Speaking of which, I think it was Carlos's second stop where Sky Sports have crossed over to the wheel gun, and they're actually taking the camera view of the rear tire. And for a fleeting moment, I was thinking to myself, "Oh God, don't get stuck! Don't get stuck!" And because in typical Ferrari fashion, it would have happened. Yeah, they crossed live, great thing, and it just would have been a disaster. So
shambles.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess what we'll do is we'll recap the whole weekend, and it really, the shambles is probably a good thing, or a good theme, or a good entry point to really sort of highlight the Christian Horner saga, which really was a dark cloud that hung over the entirety of the pit lane for pretty much the majority of the weekend. So, and I know we touched on it on the last episode, but I guess there was more clarity that came from that in the ensuing week. So in the last episode, we talked about Sky Italia releasing information that Horner was due to be dismissed on the Wednesday before the event, which didn't eventuate. What did eventuate on the Wednesday, though, was the findings from Red Bull when they actually gave Horner he was found not guilty.
Yeah.
Now, what sort of legal proceedings, the lawyers, etc., who knows? And it was Red Bull, obviously, investigating Red Bull. And, at the end
they
of
had they had an independent contractor. So it was,
cool. Okay.
an independent party investigating the situation within Red Bull.
Yeah. And so I guess, in effect, it's an industrial relations dispute, to be honest, like between employee and manager. So all good. Teams go there. Horner arrives at about midday, I think it was, in practice 2. All of a sudden, there's an email that's leaked to the entire Formula One paddock. All the team managers are included, and it goes as far as Mohammed bin Sulayem of the FIA, where there's screenshots of the conversations that Horner has had with this employee. Now, I personally haven't seen them. I didn't look at them. It didn't interest me.
Have you?
No, I haven't. Have you? Like, what was it like?
Look, I wish I had the riz of Christian Horner. Like, far out, man. The bloke's got some moves.
Oh, really? All right, come on. I was going to say.
It does not.
You had me intrigued there, Harry.
It's about as good as you could expect from a 55-year-old man trying to. I don't know what he was trying to do, but it is horrendous.
Oh God! Now you got me. Is it Leonardo Harrisoni level?
No. We can ask Shay. I'll show Shay later, and she'll definitely attest to the fact that I've got way more riz than Christian Horner. He's talking about Cocoa Pops and making sure you bring warm weather clothes because it's cold in the winter. It was deplorable. Yeah.
Were they the real screenshots though, or was it fabricated?
Look, that's the whole conspiracy at the moment. Who actually has all of the email addresses for the whole paddock? Like, what is the vendetta against Christian Horner, and where has all of this stuff come from? We don't know. We have got no extra clarity on what evidence has been brought, true or false, against Horner from the unnamed party. Yep. We still don't actually know what it's all based on. But look, if the leaks are true, then it looks like it's if I had sent messages like that to a female, and then my wife saw them, I dare say that I would be out on the curb this afternoon. But it was consenting both ways. Like,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, it wasn't like the second party was dead against it. Stop. And anytime she said that was not appropriate, he acknowledged and said, "Oh, okay, sorry. Like, I didn't mean for it to be like that." So again, like that, maybe that's, that's still not okay, but especially for Jerry. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was as. I'm trying. Like I don't think he's not done anything wrong.
He hasn't
But
acted
it's
professionally.
definitely he's not acted in a professional manner or a faithful manner for that fact. But it wasn't like it was an attack or harassment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give you some solace. The fact that if you were found on the street, I've got a house that's going to be on sale pretty soon, mate. So you would have had a roof over your head. Shut up and down.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, no dramas. Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? But there's definitely a power struggle at Red Bull now. It's become apparent because over the weekend, Jos Verstappen's gone out into the media and pretty much implied that if Christian Horner was to still stay at Red Bull, the whole place is literally set to dismantle and fall apart, which is and that came out more on the Sunday night rather than on the Saturday. But Jos, being outspoken as he is, all of a sudden that starts to put into context now some of the rumours that you hear about Newey potentially looking at outside of Red Bull. Now all of a sudden there's hot rumours going around that Max Verstappen is looking to go to Mercedes. So all of a sudden the merry-go-round and the momentum is going to continue to build from what's happened. And then obviously Bin Sulayem gets involved and, it's becoming very messy very quickly.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff with like Newey and a lot of the Jonathan Wheatley and all the rest of it is they have I guess it's what's referred to as the Christian Horner clause in their contracts. And so a lot of these senior management in Red Bull have a clause in their contract that if anything were to happen to to Christian Horner, they can leave Red Bull, no questions asked, literally the next day. So if Christian Horner is to leave Red Bull or be fired or whatever, they can all literally walk in there the next day and hand in their resignations, no questions asked. And I guess that puts into like why Red Bull really would have wanted Christian to be found not guilty of anything. But yeah, we'll see. There's going to be more fallout for sure on all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You got me intrigued now. I want to see these text messages.
and whether Max has even got one as well. Like, does Max have if Christian Horner goes, do I get to go, no questions asked sort of clause in his contract as well? When Jos was seen having talks with Toto in the paddock on Sunday night, and he's had a heated argument with Christian as well. So rumour has it that he's not going to be in Saudi Arabia. So that'll be the first Formula One race that he's missed of Max's in God knows how long. So, yeah, look, I don't think if Horner, I think it seems to be a double-edged knife at the moment. If Horner stays, Jos is thinking that Red Bull are going to implode. And if Horner goes, Red Bull will explode because everyone will leave.
Watch this space, hey? Who'd have thought, 3 or 4 months ago, end of the Formula One season, start of the new season, RB20 comes out, it's going to destroy everyone. And now all of a sudden the team itself is, on the outside anyway, is imploding. So, yeah, we'll just wait and see.
All we can say is that the start of this season has been absolutely chaotic with Lewis, with the Christian Horner stuff, now with all the Max Verstappen rumours. It's just absolute mayhem.
Yeah, and you know what's going to happen? This will happen. This is my little wheel of fortune here. So Max leaves Red Bull, goes to Mercedes-Benz. All of a sudden, there's potentially 2 spots that open up at Red Bull, and you have an all-Spanish affair with Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz filling in those 2 seats.
I don't see that. Like, I like your optimism, but I don't see that happening. And even to me, the Max Verstappen to Mercedes stuff, it's like, why? I don't think they need Max. I think they need Newey more than they need Max.
Absolutely.
At the moment, you could put put a good rookie in that car, and if they're good enough, like, they will put it on the podium every single race meeting. So I still think that there's more truth to the Kimi Antonelli rumours to Mercedes, and that's who's going to partner alongside George. Yeah, like I said, we'll wait and see.
Would you see George, though, as team leader material? He's
Yeah,
a bit more,
100%.
yeah, he's a bit more Ken rather than, say, Fernando Alonso in his temperament.
Well, I think George can fire up, and we've seen that multiple occasions through the last few years. He can fire up and bring a team on a journey. He did that with Williams. I think he's got the potential to do it. He's, maybe he's a few years too young to achieve that role, but he can definitely grow into it. And I think he would be a good, good tutor, mentor for a young driver coming into a big seat like that. If you put Kimi and Antonelli in there, it's going to be a lot of weight on such young shoulders. I think George came into Formula One with that pressure as well, so he can help Kimi along the way to try and grow and learn really quickly. And help, he's got a name like Kimi, so we've got to put him in there, right?
Oh, God, here we go. He's Italian too, so you've got double-edged sword as well, mate. You've got Kimi, which takes you back to the years gone past, and then you've got Italian because I reckon there's a bit of Italian in you and you don't even know it yet. So
you just remember who your last world champion was for your team there.
I was going to say, if you're going to say Italian world champion, you're going to go back a long way, a long way. But, look, yeah, it's going to be a lot will play out, I think, over the next sort of coming races. I think by mid-season, we'll know exactly the state of play. And I think all the dust will settle a little bit and we'll get back into a routine. By that stage, if things keep going the way they're going, Max has wrapped up title number 4. And then, I don't know, a question that's just popped into my head literally 2 seconds ago. Do you think Max is getting bored? If it's true about Mercedes, it's the challenge to bring him back to the top. But does a driver actually get bored of winning?
Look, I don't think so. I don't think a driver at that level ever gets bored of winning. What I think is the struggle for Max is that his whole life has been devoted to reaching that goal.
Yep.
That I don't think he's bored, but I think there might be some questions into what else has life got in store. Like, he's at the age where he could literally pack in Formula One now and go and forge a LMP hybrid car WEC championship. I'm going to go and win the WEC championship. He could literally go and try and race NASCAR. He could come to Australia and try and drive V8 supercars and win here. I don't think he's getting bored, but I don't think he would. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he would see the Mercedes thing as the challenge. I think he would look into a different discipline as the challenge.
Yeah. I could see him have a crack at IndyCar, maybe have a go at the 500. Try and 500.
Look, to be honest, I've seen him race everything and anything on the sim. I reckon if he didn't have the commitment with Formula One and he could go and race a different car every weekend in a different country, a different state, whatever, I honestly think he would do that, fly his jet to whatever track, put the helmet on, have a suit and have a go and say, yeah, look, that was fun. I'll do it again in a couple of weeks' time.
Might get to that point.
A huge thank you goes out to our podium partner, ProKarts Race Centre, and our incredible sponsors. Your partnership allows us to continue bringing you this show and dive deeper into the world of motorsports. If your business adds value to the motorsport community, get in touch with us to become a Negative Camber partner.
Brace yourself for the Soddy experience at ProKarts Race Centre, the official South Australian distributor for Soddy karts. Picture this: karting excellence meets global dominance, all on our local tracks. Soddy karts are more than machines, they're powerhouses of victory. From the heart of France to the South Australian circuit, they dominate in all categories. But that's not all. When you race with a Soddy kart, you're backed by on and off-track technical support directly connected to the factory. It's not just karting, it's the Soddy advantage.
Get ready to experience world-class performance, unmatched thrill, and victory like never before. Rev up for the Saudi experience, only at Pro-Karts Race Centre. Visit prokartsracecentre.com.au or pop in for a chat at 30 Research Road, Paraka. Pro-Karts Race Centre, fueling your passion, igniting your potential.
Well, let's have a look. We'll go through the results for Bahrain. We'll get that underway. So top 10, we had Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Red Bull 1-2. Nice way to start the season. Carlos Sainz, my boy, in third. My other boy, Charles Leclerc, in fourth. George Russell, fifth. Lando Norris, sixth. Lewis Hamilton, seventh. Oscar Piastri, eighth. Fernando Alonso, ninth. And Lance Stroll, good drive, coming back from that spin at the start of the race and dead last to finish in the top 10. Mind you, 93.2 seconds back from Max as well. Max's fastest lap was close to 1.5 seconds quicker than anyone else on track, which probably tells you that how much he actually had left in reserve as well, which is a scary thought.
He definitely had a spare set of softs. And so when he went out for that final stint, not a lot of fuel in the car and went for gold on the soft tyre, I think that sort of put nail into the coffin with that lap time where everyone else was still racing each other. And they were Perez came out on the soft and he needed to conserve a little bit because he needed some tyre to fight at the end. Whereas Max didn't have that worry. He just got to come out, put one decent lap in and go, this is my lap record. See you later.
One of the other things I guess we learnt in regards to Red Bull was, I suppose, the perception that Perez is still under pressure, especially because he was so underwhelming in qualifying. Raced well, but he had a significant car advantage. But still, you'd like to think he would have been able to, eradicate the demons that he had in 23. But it's almost like it was a softer repeat going into round one for this year as well.
100%. And the pace difference between Max and then, Perez, Ferrari, put them in the same bucket as each other. It's roughly half a second to 0.7 of a second per lap. And, if Ferrari pull a little bit of an upgrade together and can get to within a couple of tenths of Max, you need Perez to pull his finger out too. There's no reason that he should be more than 2 tenths away from Max at the moment. Really, they're all even a tenth, you should be within a tenth of someone if you're racing at that caliber. So, I still think, I've put in my notes here that Perez was still P nowhere. Sure, he finished on the second step of the podium, but he was 23 seconds behind his teammate. And in Formula One terms, that's an eternity.
It's pretty significant, especially in the modern Formula One. That's pretty significant as well. And the fact that he made such a meal of turns 1 and 2 in his best lap for qualifying, he's already starting 5th, 6th, whatever it was, and you've got to make up all that ground. And you just, in the meantime, Max has got clear track. All of his rivals are already hitting reliability issues. That was a plum opportunity to actually make if you're genuine about the title and wanting to take on Max at his own game, he should have been at least second or third at the start.
Yeah, 100%.
And have a crack at it. So
100%.
For us Italians, though, I'm very encouraged with Ferrari. They not quite on the pace with Red Bull, not quite. But I think I would have loved to have seen what Leclerc could have done had he had a car that didn't have the brake issue in particular. I'm not saying he would have won. He probably would have finished second like we originally predicted. I also don't think the gap would have been 20 seconds. Maybe half. Maybe.
Yeah, and look, he messed up his final qualifying run too. In qualifying, the lap that he did in qualifying 2 would have put him on pole in Q3. Yep. So had he not gone out and made a mistake, then suddenly the grid looks completely different. And we're talking about it, sure, he might have still had the brake temperature issue, but we might be looking at a completely different race.
Yeah, and look, even Sainz was also struggling with a lot of brake vibration. At one point, he was claiming that the pedal started to go long too, and he put it down to the fact that in testing, they'd never actually put themselves in, say, 10 consecutive laps behind 4 cars, and they're all just getting all the hot air, rather than you'd have maybe 1 or 2 laps and the rest of it was just all clear air running. So the front brakes would never cool down. Rears obviously would be different too. So I'd be surprised if you wouldn't see something a little bit different, perhaps with brake ducting and a little bit of a modification to the Ferraris come Saudi Arabia this weekend. But it also could have been that they went too aggressive with their brake cooling allowances as well.
Oh, and the same thing happened with Mercedes. They didn't do enough running in packed traffic, and George had quite significant brake overheating as well. So, their pace was sort of restricted, I guess, a little bit with managing that problem for George, because they put a little bit too much, blanketing in their cooling for their brakes. So I agree. I think that we will see a much faster Ferrari come Jeddah. I'd really want to go out and say that the gap will not be so big at Jeddah, and we're going to have a much better race, because Mercedes and Ferrari will get on top of those little teething issues that have come out of testing. But it's hard to say that when Max made it look so easy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, even Mercedes, I think their Grand Prix was masked by those reliability gremlins. I mean, Lewis had poor qualifying session, admittedly. Then he'd obviously had some overheating brake issues, a little bit of tyre deg, cracked seat. So that's not good. And George had the brake issue like you were talking about, but they also had an engine cooling issue. So what they were doing with George is he was having to actually lift and coast. So what they was actually doing with his tyres was the temps were dropping. So he was all over the shop as well. So, and it's these little things that I found frustrating to think, with all the running that they did, literally from the second lap into the race, all this shit started going wrong.
Yeah,
so
like you said, you said yourself, it's the running in traffic. Like, they're not running around in each other's dirty wake for 15, 20 laps consecutively. They're not, and at testing, you're not trying to push at 110% every lap. You're giving yourself 85, 90% so you can hit consistent marks every single lap. And when you make a change, we do the same thing with go-karting. You go out for a test day, you're not pushing at 110%. You're pushing 90, 85%. So you can hit every single mark, every single time the same, so that you can assess correctly what changes are doing to your particular vehicle. So once you start pushing things a little bit harder, you're running in dirty air, all the rest of it, these things creep into the cycle. And the best teams, obviously, it didn't hurt Max and Perez because they didn't have any dirty air to speak of.
Makes you wonder why these teams, I mean, admittedly, they only really run one car at a time. I don't know whether it's a regulation thing or not. It probably is. But surely it would be smart that the teams would be potentially running two cars and actually doing 10 or 15 laps sitting in each other's draft and actually getting that sort of data.
Yeah, beneficial in the terms of that it would help with reliability, but beneficial not so much in the fact that it'll ruin their testing plans, because the car's going to behave completely different when you're in clear air versus dirty air. So, some of the other teams like Haas and Alpine and that sort of stuff, where they know they're going to be at the back, they should spend a lot more time trying to chase each other and fix their cars for passing and whatnot. But the front runners, they're just like, we're going to be in front. We don't need to worry about dirty air. Let's get the car going.
McLaren were a little bit underwhelming. I expected a little bit more, but at the same token, I was expecting a little bit more, to be honest.
See, I was going to say the complete opposite, that I thought they were actually quite good. When you look at the last 2 years that they've been at Bahrain, they've come out of the race with 0 points and been pretty well second to last and last. Yeah, fair point. This year, running, what were they, 6th and 8th, come out of the race meeting with 12 points. It's a track that's generally rubbish for them, given they've still got those issues with slow cornering speed. And the front of the car not being too reactive. I thought they actually did quite good, and I'm quite keen to see what they can do at Saudi Arabia, considering the track is much more fast and flowy. They're still going to have the problem on entry to the corner to get the car to the apex, but once it makes the apex, it's going to come out of there like a rocket on all the medium speed and fast speed corners. So I'm quietly enthused with the way that McLaren have started their season. If you told me, and I was McLaren boss, if you told me that we're going to score 15, 12 points at the first round of the championship when the last 2 years we've scored 0, take that as a win. Get the hell out of there. And generally it's been a bogey track. Get the hell out of there with those 12 points and let's get on to the next round. I actually think that at some tracks they have the pace to be the second fastest car. I think they will beat Ferrari and beat Mercedes at some tracks.
I would agree. I actually think they're going to go better than what we think in Saudi Arabia. If I based it on last year's second half of the season, where on the real sort of fast, flowy tracks they were generally pretty good, Saudi Arabia's pretty bloody fast, even though there's probably a couple of sort of slower corners. A lot of it's just really quick, fast, flowing type of stuff, which, based on the second half last year, you'd say it's Super McLaren right down to a T. So all I pray with Saudi Arabia is that we actually have 3 or 4, maybe even 5 cars, 2 or 3 teams genuinely in the fight in a close battle. That would be an ideal situation, but it would be literally how much closer are they going to be to Max?
Yeah, I think so. But I do think that you're right. I think we're going to have Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren. Alpine's still going to be languishing down the back.
I was just going to say, shit, you're keen.
No, don't. Let's rewind, delete that bit for a second. Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, I think they're going to be all over each other, and it's going to really be a test in qualifying as to who can start closer to. And look, to be honest, I actually don't think Perez is going to be in the fight. Like I think he's going to struggle. I'd love to be proven wrong, but I just don't see it happening. I think we're going to be looking at sort of Max still leading the way, and there's going to be a fight between sort of Charles, Carlos, Piastri, Norris, Russell, and Hamilton for the last 2 steps on the podium.
Could you imagine like a 6-car DRS train all the way through Saudi? That'd be pretty cool.
Would love that, but there's no reason why that shouldn't be happening this year. We're in the 2nd, 3rd year of the current regulation. There's no reason why the teams shouldn't be getting closer to each other and closing the gap. So there's no reason why we can't expect to see something like that this year, especially at Saudi, especially as we head to Las Vegas, especially some of those other tracks that are a bit more fast. Bring it on. Let's hope that it's a good one. We had at points in the race at Bahrain, we had a 4 or 5 car train. We had Hamilton and Russell and Sainz and Leclerc and Norris all over the top of each other, and that was exciting to see. But then sort of as the race dragged on and everyone had their various issues and everyone was managing pace, so it got a bit diluted and dull towards the end of it.
The other thing I actually forgot to mention was that the FIA this year introduced the DRS rule where they activated it on lap 2 instead of lap 3. And so that, especially at a place like Saudi, could actually be really, really critical in terms of setting the tone really for the start of the race.
100%, and we saw Max make use of that by getting out of the DRS zone and really putting his foot down on the first lap. So it's a bit harder to do that in Saudi. It's hopefully going to entertain us a little bit more and bring it on. Bring on Saudi. Let's see some long straights and DRS trains, and hopefully some of the guys have worked on their DRS power and they can get a little bit more out of it so we can see some more passing.
RB and Yuki and Danny Rick, thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, again, a hard one. They were definitely on different strategies. I think the only mistake here was that they didn't swap them back. I think they should have swapped them back on the final lap once Daniel didn't get Magnussen. But they should have swapped earlier. And had they swapped earlier and Yuki not made it, Yuki was never getting to the back of Magnussen. He had many laps to attempt an overtake and it was never happening. As soon as Daniel got to the back of Yuki, they should have said, nah, swap now straight away. Because I think same thing as we just said with Carlos using extra tyre behind Leclerc, the same thing's happened with Daniel. He's used extra tyre behind Yuki, trying to, get past Yuki, and it's been made harder than it needed to. And that's hampered his opportunity to attack Magnussen. So was that a big double middle finger from Daniel to Yuki saying, look, you disobeyed team orders for 2 laps, so I'm not going to give you the position back? Who knows? But then Yuki's attitude after the race, dive bombing him into turn 7 and then almost writing the sides of their cars off coming out of 7. Just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Just absolutely unnecessary. That's, you go back to the garage and you have those conversations in the driver's briefing, but you don't put that on display on the track. And both those guys are fighting for a Red Bull seat. They're both fighting to, jump into Sergio's car and show him what it could have done. And you don't do that if you're Yuki trying to get a Red Bull seat.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree with you more. I think his actions on track were absolutely deplorable. And at the end of the day, have that discussion like you've said, but vent your frustration to team management. It's not Ricciardo's fault that things have ended up the way they have. Now, admittedly, we don't know what was actually discussed in full detail in, say, the pre-race briefing. And, you don't get the full radio dialogue. You only get what really F1 TV puts out through Sky Sports. So there could, as you said, there could have been that dialogue with Daniel resisting. But either way, I mean, I know Yuki's had a bit of a temper and a bit of a hothead from time to time, but I've never seen him try and actually take out his anger on his teammate, even the times when he has had his ass kicked. So I think there's a little bit more to it than that. Irrespective, just do it behind closed doors.
That's the basis of the story. Just, you don't need to put that out into the open and make it public, like those actions did. You take it to the garage, you take it behind the closed doors of the team debrief, and you ask what the hell happened. And I mean, maybe you're Daniel as well. Maybe you're Daniel and you're asking Yuki, why the hell didn't you let me pass 2 laps earlier? We heard, I think it was 3 laps in a row, we heard the message to Yuki that we're going to do the car swap, and it just didn't happen. So why wasn't it happening? That's what I'd like to ask as well. Not a good way to start the season for that team if they're going to. But again, the pressure is on the both of them. So Yuki sees that as a missed opportunity to prove that he's faster than Daniel. And I guess Daniel's just like, beautiful, I've been handed a result that makes me look better than Yuki. It's I wouldn't like to be in their team principal's shoes right now, because 2 guys like that with decent talent trying to shoot for a Red Bull seat, it's going to be a tough relationship to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that leaves us to Saudi Arabia now. Of course, we've covered it a little bit there with Jeddah. We'll start off with our predictions for top 3. What do you got?
Max, Charles, Carlos.
Bloody hell, you read my mind. Yeah, I'd say Max and Ferrari 2-3, but don't know what order, to be honest. Yep. And I think it will be closer than what we think. All right,
yeah,
so
I agree.
Wild card, what have you got?
Lando.
Oh, he might break the duck.
Lando pushing for... No, not to win.
I was going to say.
No, Lando on the podium.
Okay.
McLaren on the podium. That's my wild card. I wouldn't go to the TAB and put my money on it happening. But I would happily sit here and say I told everyone to go and do it when they've won their money.
Okay. My wild card is we have a repeat of the 2021 clash between Max and Lewis.
Oof. Yeah, okay. Oh, with Max and Lewis again, or like with Max and someone else?
With Max and Lewis. Yeah.
There you go.
That's my wild card.
That's a big one.
So our wild cards in that last race sucked ass, so we were shit on that one. So we got pole, and we were looking pretty good there at one point for our top 3.
We need someone to take us and hold us accountable for these predictions that we're doing, so we can review them each episode. Because I couldn't even tell you who I said my top 3 were going to be, who my wild card was going to be last week.
Well, I reckon we should do that. Get our listeners to keep us accountable.
100%. They should all be messaging us and going, "You suck. Can't believe you said that this person was going to win the race or finish second," or, "Oh, I should have put my house on the fact that you guys know what you're talking about." Well, there you go, listeners, fans of our show. When you listen to this episode, write on our Facebook page, comment on the section when we publicise our episode, and tell us what you think as a challenge 100%. To them, or inboxes on the Facebook page. 100%. Let's hear from you. And again, like get the questions flowing in. Let's ask us some questions and get involved in the show.
Pole position,
Max.
Charles. Yeah.
Okay.
I got a funny feeling. Charles a bit angry now. Charles got the red mist, pardon the pun. And I think I think we're going to celebrate our first pole for the year.
There you go.
What
Good luck.
have we got? We'll need it. Let's be honest. All right.
A huge thank you goes out to our podium partner, ProKarts Race Centre, and our incredible sponsors. Your partnership allows us to continue bringing you this show and dive deeper into the world of motorsports. If your business adds value to the motorsport community, get in touch with us to become a Negative Camber partner.
Prepare for a race day like no other at ProKarts Race Centre, where racing excellence isn't just on the surface, it's in every detail. Your kart is more than a machine, it's a masterpiece of precision and performance. Our race mechanic services ensure your kart is finely tuned, race ready and expertly maintained. Leave the technical details to us while you focus on conquering the track. But we're not just mechanics, we're partners in your victory. Our skilled team provides on-site pit support during race meetings, ensuring that every element is in place for your success. At ProKarts Race Centre, we're not just about the thrill of the race, we're about the joy of winning. Join us and experience racing excellence from the inside out. Visit prokartsracecentre.com.au or pop in for a chat at 30 Research Road, Karaka. ProKarts Race Centre, fueling your passion, igniting your potential.
I think that's it for Formula One.
I've got one more thing as around the world we don't have this week. But another piece of interesting Formula One news is that FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem is under investigation for an alleged attempt to alter the result of last year's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Listeners will remember it's the one where Fernando Alonso finished third on the road, but then had a 10-second penalty for the team touching the car during a penalty stop that ended up demoting him to fourth. But then, lo and behold, in the stewards' hearing, it then ended up getting reversed and his 10-second penalty revoked. And of course, that all arose due to him starting outside of his grid box, which the FIA had put more scrutiny on because it was a new regulation change. But according to the BBC, Ben Sulayem was the subject of an investigation after a whistleblower accused him of trying to interfere with the result by attempting to get Alonso's 10-second penalty overturned. Ben Sulayem is alleged to have called Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamas bin Isa Al Khalifa.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, I can actually. Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamas bin Isa Al Khalifa, who is the FIA Vice President for Sport for the Middle East and Northern African region, and who is also a close friend of his and was present at the race. But at the time, the focus was done on Aston Martin's sporting director, Andy Stevenson, who successfully made the team's case in the right of review appeal and convinced the stewards to change their minds. Basically, he showed them 7 examples of pit stops where other teams, namely AlphaTauri, Haas, McLaren, Mercedes and Alpine, had used their rear jacks to touch the car before the penalty countdown had finished. And that was, enough for the stewards to consider new evidence and overturn it. So, the matter is being investigated by the FIA Ethics Committee, and the report has been submitted to the FIA Compliance Officer, Paolo Basari. So it'd be interesting to see what comes of that, and another story to just to keep the story ball rolling in an already hectic 2024 Formula One season.
I think if he's done it once, I'm not saying he's being proven guilty. If he's done it once, he's done it multiple times. And I guarantee you this, how many people on social media have asked them to investigate Abu Dhabi 2021?
That's fine. That's all good, that one.
Yeah.
We're just going racing. But yeah, that's an interesting story. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
What on earth is happening behind the scenes in Formula? I thought V8 Supercars was bad with some of the crap that's been going on, and now we've got this.
Yeah.
So have you just off topic, very slightly off topic. Do you listen to Club Shay Shay, like Shannon Sharp's podcast? So there was a comic that had come on earlier this year, and for the life of me right now, it's escaped me. But it's gone absolutely viral in terms of this pod. And one of the things he was saying was 2024 was the year of truth, and that people were going to come on and all the shit was going to hit the fan. And so far, it has not been proven wrong.
No, it's not disappointing at all.
Yeah. What's the bloody comic's name? It'll come to me probably tonight before I go to bed, and I'll message you and be like, "Hey, Lee, it was this thing."
Always the way.
Yeah. But yeah. So no around the world, we're all good with that.
No,
Okay.
but I do have one more piece of Formula One news for you. I ended on a slightly upbeat note because this track is personally one of my favourites, and it appears that the FIA are discussing a return of the Turkish Grand Prix to be held at Istanbul Park. Our friend from the last story there, Mohammed bin Sulayem, was seen meeting with the president of Turkey. His name is Recep Tayyip Erdogan. It gets better because there's some more names in here that I'm going to struggle to pronounce.
That's just funny here you're trying to pronounce it. I'll give you 10 out of 10 for trying.
The gathering between the two drivers, between the two men, was actually hosted by former Turkish rally champion and FIA World Motorsport Council member Serkan Yaziki. And
That's not too bad.
Eren Uklepatogre. Eren Uklepatogre. That guy, you know the one. Anyway, that guy, he's the president of the Turkish Automobile Sports Federation. So, they're super excited to get the return of World Rally Championship and the return of the Formula One World Championship into Turkey. Hopefully the tender for the new owner or the new manager of Istanbul Park requires that someone who is submitting a proposal to become the manager of Istanbul Park has a Formula One contract in place to join the calendar by 2026. So big shoes to fill there for the new owner or the new manager of whoever walks into Istanbul Park.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I noticed? There's a lot of presidents in that room that were meeting about this. It's almost like the White House of the UN. President of this and president of that.
The motorsport White House for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cat Williams was the comic.
There you go. Yeah.
Do yourself a favour.
I love Cat Williams.
If you do, honestly, listen to the podcast. It goes for about 2.5, 3 hours. It's long, but it is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Have you seen Cat Williams trying out Joe Rogan's racing simulator?
No.
No, you gotta. That's pretty funny too.
All right. Okay. I'll have to check that one out because it was. But this pod has gone off its nuts. Like over 1 million views on YouTube and stuff. So yeah, definitely look at it. But you'll have to send me the link of that one then.
Yeah, I will for sure.
Joe Rogan's thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and just so you remember, that guy's name was Eren Uklepatogre. Okay, Eren Uklepatogre.
Aaron photography. Okay, that's cool.
Correct.
One thing I forgot to talk. Two things we actually forgot to talk about was Alpine and how poor they are. So they've basically designed a plank of wood with wheels because that's probably about as how it handles. But they've actually now
billy cart with a motor in it.
Yeah, pretty much. And you would have thought with all that overseas investment and extra cash that they've got, well, Hollywood investment, that they would have done better than what they've done. But they've actually just gone and dismissed all of their design department and they're starting again as part of a restructure. And we're only after the first race.
100%. But there's a lot of shoes to fill there because there was such a thing made about Otmar Safnauer and his lack of leadership with the team that if something goes wrong and lack of results I suppose as well. But they've got to act quickly.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's, they've gotten rid of Otmar, but the team has kind of slowly dipped further and further into the abyss without him. So maybe Otmar wasn't actually the problem in the first place. So it's typical French politics, mate. It's no different to Italian. It's just one's croissant and the other one's minestrone. It's the same thing. So
pizza and coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Now, on to NASCAR very briefly. Kyle Larson and his challenge for the Indy 500 this year. That is something I'm actually going to really look forward to because I think he will do exceptionally well.
Yeah, 100%. And the fact that he's trying to do the double as well. So as soon as the Indianapolis 500 finishes, he gets straight on the jet and heads to North Carolina to do the Charlotte 600 in the NASCAR. Yeah, how good's that? Get to try and do the double, which has been done. It's going to escape me now. Biscuits will message as soon as he hears this episode. But yeah, I honestly think I'm going to put a cheeky $100 on him to win the Indy 500.
Could you imagine if he did the double? It'd be like you going from light to heavy and winning both races, in a go-kart, except rather than traveling 5 minutes to your trailer and put a weight and then come back on, he's actually got to travel, an hour and a half by air or something like that?
Yeah, 100%. And to be honest, I actually think he's got the skill to do it. So, yeah, that's something to look forward to in the last weekend of May.
And I think that wraps us up for the week, my friend. I think we'll probably come back and do a recap of the Saudi Grand Prix, given that it's a long weekend Monday as well. Hopefully, actually, when is the race being shown?
It's like first thing Sunday morning because it's another Middle Eastern run, so they're doing it Saturday night in the Middle East.
Okay, all right.
So I think it's like 3 a.m. Adelaide time.
Geez, they're really forgiving the Saudis with the time here in Adelaide. They really care about the Australian time zone, don't they?
Yeah. No, I think it's just Formula One in general. They don't give a shit about Australian time zone. It's all about what's going to work for Europe.
Yeah, well, and then Australia's actually got the opening round of 2025, actually. So
Correct.
all of a sudden the calendar's changed again. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out too. But did you end up getting tickets for the Grand Prix, considering they released a batch again? No?
No, not in my wheelhouse this year.
Yeah, my brother actually ended up getting some tickets. And the fallacy that is the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, there were plenty of seats that were available in the Ricardo stand that when they were initially first released were completely sold out. So the question is, were they sold out to begin with?
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah, the rort that is the Australian Grand Prix Corporation.
Or they made a bigger grandstand and decided to re-release tickets, move their rows differently.
We're going to need a bigger boat, Dad.
Exactly.
Remember that ad?
Yeah.
On that note, mate, we shall call it a night. Hope you enjoyed the Bahrain Grand Prix wrap-up, folks, and we will see you probably next week for the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix wrap-up as well. Good night.
You've reached the checkered flag of another episode of Negative Camber the Motorsport Show, proudly brought to you by Pro Karts Race Centre. A huge thank you to you, our incredible listeners. Your support and passion for motorsports fuels our enthusiasm to bring you the latest results, analysis, and interviews from the racing world. Keep that FOMO at bay by subscribing to Negative Camber on your favourite podcast platform. We'd also love it if you could leave us a review and share the show with your fellow racing enthusiasts. Your feedback and support mean the world to us. Remember, Negative Camber is more than just a podcast. We're a community of dedicated fans who live and breathe motorsports. Follow us on socials, join us on our website, negativecamber.co, and be sure to subscribe to the Negative Camber Club for access to exclusive content, episode previews, and special deals from our amazing partners. Until next time, stay fueled with passion, embrace the Negative Camber, and keep chasing those podium finishes.